1952. And that was my dad with a fireman from Vailsburg that he worked with. And they carried the business on and off, just out of the firehouse type stuff. This was my father's helmet, and he was in 5 truck. That's on Belmont Avenue. That's his badge number 131. My grandfather was a fireman. He worked over in North Newark, and he was in 13 engine. And anyway, it became a situation whereas the business started to really grow. And that was the liquid extinguishers, the soda acid and the foam. And one thing after the other popped up. And just at that particular time I got married, in 1957. Oh, quite a few years until I came out of the Navy, which was early, I guess 56 or 57, somewhere in that manner. And when I got into the job, the fire department changed tremendously. Newark changed tremendously. And we went from maybe hundreds of runs a year to thousands of runs a year. And when I left the fire department, and I don't even know the date anymore, but it was 12 years later, it was in the 1970s. I guess it was around 72 or 73. They were going anywhere between 6,000 and 8,000 fires a year. We earned our money. Very seldom did we get a chance to bunk out or sleep, but it was interesting. I don't know whether the firemen today could do that or not, but we would get a fire at 3 o'clock in the morning. We had what they call a night rake, and you jump out of your bed, you put your feet in, and you pull it up, and you're dressed. And you got the boots on, you go over to the pole, slide down the pole, and then you jump on the back of the apparatus. By that time, the captain and the driver was pulling the rig out. So we used to hang on the back. They don't do that anymore. They ride in a nice little comfortable seats when they go to a fire. But we had a lot of pride in the jobs that we did. We saved a lot of people's lives in August. And we lived in a cold water flat. And by that time, my dad was starting to get a little bit old. You know, he was interested in the business, but not aggressively like I was. And so I started looking for a place to do the work. I didn't have a factory, I didn't have anything. And my butcher on the corner of 20th Street and 19th Avenue had a little garage in the back of his building, and he rented it to me. I thought it was a lot of money, $15 a month. But, hey, it worked out. He had running water in there, and I could take the extinguishers from the people's property and take them in and do the extinguishers there, and then take them right back. Now, you had to be careful because if they fell over, they went off. So nobody really wanted to handle them, and that's why they used to bring them to the firehouse. But the problem is that they put them back in the car, they start the car up, the extinguisher would fall, and then go off, you know, and it just didn't work out. Well, being gregarious and the kind of person I was, I reached out for them. And my father used to give me names of people that came in and wanted their extinguishers filled, and I'd go to them, and bingo, I sold them. But being the type of person I was, I knock on the door next door. Oh yeah, you want to take care of it for us? What a great deal. I think I charged $1 a piece. It was big money. So I had to have a place to do it, and that's where this place came in. I had running water, and it was just the two types, the Class A and the Class AB, the soda acid and the foam extinguisher. And I used to do all the work, and this was before the government or the state got involved in taking over the factors with fire extinguishers, because there wasn't too many traces of people being hurt. But by and by, certain times came by where extinguishers exploded. Well, I'm in the middle of this thing, and I'm looking at opportunity, you know. And I was going out knocking on doors and knocking on doors, and I did most of the groundwork at that particular time. And then we started to grow, and my dad was still involved with it. And then I worked out a deal with him that I let him do all the paperwork, and I did all the physical work. And then we went from 19th Avenue to 20th Street, and from 20th Street to 18th Avenue. We went from 18th Avenue to Down Neck. As the business continued to grow, I grew with this organization. There were 70-some members. They were all business people, and immediately I got all their businesses. But they all had friends, and they multiplied my business. So maybe I had 70 there, but I ended up with 300 by the time people said, this is a nice kid, he does nice work, he doesn't charge too much, and he's reliable. So, and I kept records, you know. And then I had my dad, he helped me out a lot with records. I got to say that much for him. And then all of a sudden, it started to get to be too much. And my brother, who was 9 years younger than me, started to work with us. So I made him part of the business. And one thing led to another. And it got to the point where I couldn't do enough. The garage was too small. And I looked around, and there was an insurance guy on 18th Avenue, which was 1 block away from me. And he had a store up for rent. So we went up there, and somewhere around $35 to $40 a month I got the place for. That was probably 1962. That's the year that I had City Fire Equipment, not an extinguisher company, because I changed the name, registered in Newark. I had to do that to. The whole thing really surged around Merchant Street in the beginning, because that's when we really started to grow. 18th Avenue was tremendous too, but it was really cramped. It was in a building just about the size of this room. The business really grew through the 70s. The 60s, it was the soda and acid foam type of business. The 70s, it started to grow into the pressurized type fire extinguisher, the cartridge type fire extinguisher, the extinguisher that people could more or less rely on. The big thing that jumped in and that I picked up on right away is the education. Getting people to know how to use a fire extinguisher, how to prevent a fire. A lot of people are silly when they're working in a factory, you know. They'll smoke while they're doing their job, or they'll deal with flammable liquids and expose themselves to fire. A lot of that happened in the old days. Thank God that they turned around and made rules and regulations and laws, the state did, to control fires. It saved an awful lot of lives. Lord knows Billy was the first one in my kids, and then Michael came along, and the girls never really got involved until later on. I got them to get into city fire equipment, and Paul's an expert at talking to people. He's an expert to running a business, and although I ran it until 1970, he was my vice president. And whether he realized it or not, he was being trained to run the business at that particular time. And you have to say that he's done one hell of a good job. He does excellent work, and he still maintains the outward push to meet with different